Greetings, and welcome to All Our Faults, a Monster Hearts 2 actual play podcast by the Tabletop Talespinners Network. I am your host and MC, Mistress Winter. For those of our dear listeners who have been with us in the first half of our journey, welcome back. We are so happy to see you. And if you're coming to us for the first time, you are so welcome. This story has been a doozy from the start, and we hope that it's a story that you'll enjoy. But don't worry if you're not caught up on our first 23 episodes. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to summarize the first half of our season in what I hope is an engaging narrative so that you are caught up on the main points before our return in a couple of weeks. But before I do, let's have a chat at the table. Summer break was sorely needed, as my move to Europe was fraught with challenge after challenge. Admittedly, it was all very overwhelming. Extreme anxiety and depression were my travel companions, and they still come around sometimes. But I'm getting into a much better place now that I've gotten settled in with a new job and home and therapy. For all of you who have offered support and encouragement, thank you. It means so much. But I am so glad to be back on the air. I have desperately missed telling this story. My cast and I have done a few records since our break, but they too have needed a break for major life happenings. Juicy Garland, for instance, is becoming a bit of a sensation in the community, garnering a Crit Award nomination and gracing several conventions with her fabulous charm. We've had engagements, loss of family members, and reunions, all in that little time frame. So a break was needed and deserved. Now we've come back refreshed and ready to share the second half of our amazing tale. If you haven't seen any of our recent posts on socials, then I am excited to announce a change in our cast lineup. TTRPG storyteller and Vampire the Masquerade veteran, Extel, has graciously joined us and added his character, Solomon, to our team of protagonists. Solomon's faulty flashpoint will be released in a couple of weeks and will give us the origin story of this self-described werewolf himbo. That wraps up my announcements and revelations. Let's dive in to our recap of the first half season of All Our Faults. Journal entry, August 15th, 2023, 3 years, AD. I have just been informed that the natural cycle has seen several major upheavals in only the past 6 months, and all within our fair city of Chester's Chasm. Specifically, the lives of 4 students from Chesterfield High have been altered in alarming ways. I was not provided the finer details, but I shall endeavor to capture the essence of these events for record in perpetuity. Our first case occurred during the spring break of last year. I've known Celine Brooks to be a girl between worlds, which is easy to understand when I tell you that Celine is half mortal, half fairy. Her bloodlines draw a divide between her mother's mundane world and the fey world of her father, King Mercury of the Unseelie Court. It was the latter she was visiting when her troubles began, during what I'm told was a heated debate regarding Celine's permanent residency. The kingdom was sieged, forcing father and daughter alike to flee. Their pursuers were none other than the Wild Hunt, a savage group of fey warriors relentless in their goals. Mercury assisted Celine's escape back into the mortal world, but not before a hound of the hunt named Kocar could follow. The princess did manage to evade the dire wolf and return home with her mother Jessamine. Kocar has not been deterred, however, and still hunts the young woman, drawing closer every day. Our second case is the cautionary tale of Michael Delacroix, golden-haired beauty from a family strong in business, but not so in love and care. In this void of familial affection, Michael looked elsewhere to sate his need for love. On a fateful night at a club in town, Michael found a kind of love in the alluring gaze of Dominic Vega, a powerful vampire in the city and, shall we say, connoisseur of young men of Michael's type. Poor Michael was lured to Vega's apartment with passionate promises that would end Michael's life as it had many others. But in the throes of ecstasy, Michael unwittingly completed the process to become Vega's vampiric progeny. Angered beyond contempt, Vega cast a broken Michael into a dungeon with a challenge to survive if he wanted to be the master's spawn. It would be sometime later in the summer that Michael sought out a friend to confide in. Who better than Bert Ransom, a transfer student who had bonded with our young vampire, and even caught a few affectionate glances from the same. It was those very feelings that found the two boys parked at a lighthouse in the storm. Sadly, they found no partner in their emotional dance, and they headed for home. Little did they know, Master Death was out to correct a mistake. At the bottom of the ravine in which the teen's car had landed, Master Death stalked Michael with the intent to correct the cycle. But Bert intervened, offering his life in service for his friend's continued unlife. As disturbances to the cycle have increased in the past year, I can imagine that Master Death accepted the boys' bargain to bolster our numbers against what doom may be coming. Thus, Bert became a fellow reaper in Death's service. Finally, is the curious case of Crispin Ligatone, whose story began before his birth. The youngest and only child to survive infancy, Crispin is his family's last thread of legacy within their religious tradition. And as a young Crispin learned on an outing with his mother Lucille, that legacy is one drenched in blood. The boy's day began sweetly, a wide-open playground to enjoy himself, steps away from the concerns of his mother's fracturing sanity. But peace is rarely held long, as dozens of public school children descended on the park. I recall that his demeanor reflected that of the Notre Dame hunchback, shying away from a society that shunned him, which was validated by children whispering of his freakish nature, though spiritual in his case. His excuse to recuse himself from such torment came in the form of violence blooming on the steps of the Church of Eternal Vigilance, to which Crispin's family were fervent members. Older boys from the congregation had begun to clash with protesters, and Crispin would prove his mettle by joining in the fray. I imagine that the instant he was amidst the combat, Crispin realized he had not the heart for zealotry. I believe Dr. Miller, psychiatrist and wife of the church leader, Father Miller, saw the same and pulled Crispin away to safety. What impressions and doubts that fatal fight had left on Crispin, only time will tell. The new school year starts in a few days. I shall be as vigilant a watcher as I always am. Journal entry, August 22nd, 2023, 3 years AD. Everything is coming undone, and it's only been a week. The cycle has begun to unravel from the very first day of school. I wonder if even Master Death could have predicted that 4 teenagers from the yearbook club would cause what may be the start of the apocalypse. Perhaps if I could trace back the threads to the first day of school, I might be able to make sense of it. If ever there was an inciting incident, it would be when Celine was brutalized. The attack happened when our princess was running from her hunter to the safety of a tattoo parlor in the mall, a section of the city known for how it swallows lives. She was quickly saved by her friends, the Cabrera siblings, but the long-lasting effects of that event rippled out and impacted everyone. At first, it seemed that Celine and Crispin might be drawn closer by Celine's trauma. However, Crispin's upbringing came to bear in a rather epic lunchroom tangent that left Celine feeling blamed for her own attack. I'm not sure you could blame Crispin for his folly. I suspect his faith is very much a dragon that rears its ugly head on occasion, and a creature only he can slay. It is a wonder that the protection of a warding glyph had fallen on the likes of the Church of Eternal Vigilance with all its violence, calling on its members throughout generations to guard it during a coming-of-age ceremony called the Vigil. It was Crispin who saw his charge destroyed, but more on that in a moment. Meanwhile, Bert's attempts to draw Michael's affections were frustrated by the vampire's obsession with a fellow student, William Harker. Our Reaper was undeterred, however, and hoped to bring the group together at the end of the week back-to-school bash. In need of a partner to throw Kocar off her scent, Celine agreed to take Jacob Feldman, her rival yearbook artist, to the dance, while Michael and Bert would be companions. Crispin would attend on his own in the wake of his public blunder. Schoolyard drama aside, Bert caught on to strange occurrences on the rise around Chester's Chasm. Sourceless illnesses, increased paranormal activity, mysterious visitors, all ended up on his murder board in his underworld sanctuary. These portents seemed to herald the recent cataclysm. If only we'd paid more attention. The back-to-school bash was lively, but no less fraught with personal and supernatural turmoil. Barbara Holcomb started the night excited to see her yearbook team in action, but was once again dismissed by the group as a whole. The divide between Celine and Crispin continued to grow, especially with Jacob smothering the Feykin in attention. Sadly, it was the last joy that Jacob would feel before his death. Now you may be able to blame Michael for luring Jacob away to feed on the boy, inadvertently making him weaker prey for something else. You could accuse Celine of knowingly marking him as prey during their lovemaking. More likely, it was a confluence of these things that led Fenrir's son to slay poor Jacob. The boy's death would be the next largest domino to fall in our path to the apocalypse. After the harrowing night, Michael, Bert, and Celine found themselves at the Cascade, Waterfall, Fairy Portal, and future Ground Zero. Here they revealed their secrets apart from Crispin, who would arrive later to herald the end. Oh, I wish I had not been so preoccupied trying to locate the now missing Master Death. Perhaps I could have intervened. But in our absence, Celine was captured by her hunter, intent on dragging her back to the Fey realm. Michael, in his attempts to save the princess, untethered himself in splendid fashion by disavowing his vampiric master, fucking Bert, disrupting Jacob's wake, and posing as the crucified Jesus to frighten a violent mob. But it would be a post-coital Bert who would sacrifice himself to save Celine, dragging her bestial captor to the underworld. My spies have not found any further trace of either as of yet. By this time, Crispin had begun his watch over the Holy Seal. Those in his procession couldn't keep to their own rights, however, turning on Jacob's mourners. While yes, the CEV are bold on the best of days, I have come to understand that their aggression was spurred by unnatural means, specifically from one Dr. Miller, who was observed using Fey influence to encourage the resulting fight from afar. I cannot say what was the tipping point. The violent bloodshed from this altercation, the loss of an agent of death, Crispin's decision to not be a hero, Michael's dark and sacrilegious behavior, or the Wild Hunt's eagerness to find the princess. But the end result is clear. The seal is broken. We are no longer under its protection, and I have no comprehension of what that means. Celine was able to close the portal between realms at least, though what that cost her, I cannot say for sure. One unintended consequence was the reveal of her heritage to Crispin, who was driven away into the possibly treacherous embrace of Dr. Miller. Following that event, our princess found no solace at home and has found sanctuary instead at the tattoo parlor for the time being. As for our young vampire, he paid a visit to William right before surrendering himself to his master for judgment. I have heard that he emerged this morning clinging to unlife and has returned to Harker for safety. Further, there is yet another player in all of this who is yet to be revealed. I can only guess at who and what trouble they bring. To put it simply, it is a mess, and without Master Death's guidance, I am at a loss on the best course of action. Do I find someone to replace the seal, if it can even be restored? Do I continue my duties as normal, keeping the cycle on its course? Or do I prepare to meet the horsemen on the fields of battle? Death is a worry of the living, but what awaits the dead when they fall? Perhaps we shall discover the answer in coming months as we reckon with the consequences of all our faults. That concludes our recap. I hope you found it entertaining and enticing. Thank you to the Tabletop Talespinners Network and director Emma Kocar for your continued guidance. Shout out as always to Juicy Garland, our social media queen. I have been your hostess and narrator today, Mistress Winter. You can find me on most socials at Mistress Winter. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for the first episode of All Our Faults season return. I wish your hearts happiness and love until then. This has been a tale from the Tabletop Talespinners Network.